right, I'm Val Free of the Neighborhood Network Alliance, and this is the Hey Neighbor podcast. And today I'm here with the Queen of South Shore. I don't care what they say, the Queen of South Shore, Dr. Carol Adams.
And I remember the precise time I met you.
You do?
Yes. I was working on Jazz Comes Home to South Shore.
Yep.
To that particular event. We were bringing the jazz concerts back to the South Shore Cultural Center.
Yeah.
And someone from the South Shore Chamber brought you to the meeting and introduced you.
It was actually him in English.
And it was Tianda Wirtz also.
Okay.
He brought you to the meeting and introduced you to me. Mm-hmm. And we started working together around that.
Yes, we did.
And then it just seemed like it went from one thing to the next.
Yes, and we have been at the hip ever since.
Exactly.
Majani was a labor of love, for sure. We're honored to be in South Shore, and lots of stories to tell about what it's like to be here. So
tell us what is Majani?
Majani is a Swahili word that means green. And so for us, green is not just the cuisine, but it's also, when you come, you'll see that all the tables I made from reclaimed oak. The ceiling was reclaimed wood, also repurposed wood. So it's that part. And also most of our staff walks to work. So it's just having that kind of energy where it's local, it's green, and so that's what we kind of build ourselves upon. Yeah.
Well, Tammy, just to give people a little background, Tammy is a singer who grew up in South Shore, lives in South Shore. Her nickname is Tammy from South Shore. That's how she introduces herself. So I would like for Tammy from South Shore to talk about Tammy from South Shore. Talk about your upbringing. How did you get into singing? Talk about your journey. Talk about South Shore, because we're going to get into the arts and culture of South Shore today.
Wow. South Shore has given me just everything. Everything that I am is because of South Shore. My parents moved here when I was, I think, 6. We used to live in South Commons, and we got our home on 7201 South Luella. And when I was about 6 years old, and I started my journey at St. Philip Neri Grammar School. And all of us, myself and my 2 sisters, went to school originally in South Shore and then blossomed to other neighborhoods for our becoming, if you will. But South Shore, to me, is just this perfect little hamlet when I was growing up. I mean, we had our own movie theater. We had Bubbles Candy store right on 73rd, right off of Luella. Yeah. We had so many wonderful little places to go, to play, to hang out, and everything that I am and everything that I expect of a neighborhood comes from, growing up here in South Shore.
Informally, 2008, I founded the organization. On paper, it's 2009. But I was just a Little League coach in our beloved neighborhood of South Shore. And the league I was coaching in folded up, had been around for a few years. So I was keeping the work going. And keeping the work going, I needed to be able to generate donations. And in order to generate donations, as I know, I needed a 501c3. Yeah. So I started pursuing creating this organization. Initially, just because I wanted to be able to have somebody else fund the work I was doing. I didn't make a lot of money. Mm-hmm. I couldn't do a lot. So the organization was born as a formal not-for-profit. But that process challenged me to see more than just being a coach, to see it as more than just baseball. So it was a moment for me, more of an epiphany, where I was able to reflect on what sports meant to me in South Shore and how it had contributed to my personal development and my path in life.
How did I get here? Well, most people think that I grew up in South Shore, and I did not. I grew up in the Auburn Gresham community and moved to South Shore for my very first apartment. I came by way of the Quadrangle House like so many of us, and fell in love with the South Shore community, being on the lakefront, and just enjoying everything that the community had to offer. Unfortunately, I ended up, well, I guess not unfortunate, but I ended up moving to the suburbs, got married, had my daughter, and decided that I wanted to come back into the community, and I made a beeline straight back to the South Shore community. I've been with the South Shore Chamber of Commerce, I think close to 10 years now. I think it'll be 9 years in May. And I took an interest in the community work because my husband, who I also met in South Shore, he would talk about all the changes the community was going through, how he wanted to continue investing in the community. And I thought that was so noble.
But what I would like for you to do is introduce yourself, talk about you, and then we can go into the South America community.
Okay, well, I have been in South Shore for like 50 years. I've raised my children in South Shore, and I would say I've been a community activist about maybe 20 years, although I've been an activist all my life. Mm-hmm. So and when I worked, and when I was in corporate America, I worked for Hertz, and I was like in micromanagement, and every time I changed locations, they would be, oh, why is she coming here? Because every place I went, I was known to stir up stuff and to get things done.
The pot stirrer.
Quilt is a 513C nonprofit. Mm-hmm. We started in 2017 doing work in communities across Chicago. In 2017, I was on the west side of Chicago, where I'm born and raised in Chicago on the west side in North Lawndale. I haven't been living in the city for about 30 years. I live out in the suburbs, but I came back to visit family. And what I found is that individuals didn't understand why they needed the internet at home. So, yeah, in 2017. God. So then when I went back home to the suburbs, I did some research to see if it was a prevalent thought in communities like those from which I came. And I found out that it is. And it wasn't just in Chicago, it was across the nation. But I felt compelled to do something about it, to step in and begin to help individuals, get digital literacy skills, get devices, access to the internet, and become more engaged.
Well, I always say to everybody in the office and to all my colleagues, because they call me the historian.
Yes.
And I always say to them, you can never chart your path going forward unless you know where you've been. Mm-hmm. So it's important that we always know our history. And what I find more and more is that less and less we know our history. We definitely don't know our history as it relates to land. And I always go back to that because there's, we're the only people, we get moved every 20, 30, 40 years. Off the land in Chicago. And when we talk about Chicago, I could talk about other cities, but I can really talk about Chicago.
Honestly, the community began to tell me what their need was. Okay. Mm-hmm. People began to say, oh, or you're going to build a cafe. Well, that's what we've been wanting for a long time. Yes. And then even during the build out, me as a worker there, me undergoing a construction, and while I have other businesses, I may have had documents to fill out, things that I needed to do, and I was hungry, but needed to have a working lunch, right? Fill out documents while I eat. There was nowhere that I can go in the immediate area where I was working to sit down and fill up, because it was still a construction site. So I couldn't work at the property. I just wanted to go nearby, fill out my documents, and have a nice lunch. I went to a nearby place. They weren't open during posted hours. There was another place that was closed down when I thought they were open. And then there was a few other places that just didn't have healthy, feasible options for the diet that it is that I want for my body. Mm-hmm. And so those are the types of concerns that I would hear from the neighbors.
Happy talk, keep talking, happy talk. Talk about things you like to